Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we're looking at Jeremiah chapter 16's prophecy of the Muslims. So, Jeremiah chapter 16, the prophecy is in verses 19 to 20. O Lord, my strength and my stronghold, my refuge in the day of trouble. To you shall the nations come from the ends of the earth and say, our ancestors have inherited nothing but lies, worthless things in which there is no profit. Can mortals make for themselves gods? Such are no gods. So this here is a prophecy of the Muslims converting the Gentiles from idol worship to monotheism. And I think just reading this passage should be enough. All of you guys should be able to recognize the fulfillment. But let's just read the passage in full. So if we look verses 16 to 18, I am now sending for many fishermen, says the Lord, and they shall catch them. And afterward I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and every hill, and out of the clefts of the rocks. For my eyes are on all their ways, they are not hidden from my presence, nor is their iniquity concealed from my sight. And I will doubly repay their iniquity and their sin, because they have polluted my land with carcasses of their detestable idols, and have filled my inheritance with their abominations. What's that talking about? That's talking about the Israelites in the time of Jeremiah, and God is saying that they are sinners so much that he's going to punish them through the Babylonians. They're going to go into exile. So these verses, the beginning verses, are about the Babylonian exile. God is saying he's going to punish them through the Babylonians. And he brings up their idol worship. Now, in response to that, Jeremiah now speaks. The prophet Jeremiah speaks, and he says, O Lord, my strength and my stronghold, my refuge in the day of trouble. To you shall the nations come from the ends of the earth and say, our ancestors have inherited nothing but lies, worthless things in which there is no profit. Can mortals make for themselves gods? Such are no gods. So Jeremiah responds to God for telling the Babylonian exile by mentioning that there's going to come a time where even the Gentiles are going to abandon their idols. God responds, therefore I am surely going to teach them. This time I am going to teach them my power and my might, and they shall know that my name is the Lord. The way I take this is God is going back to what he foretold, which is the Babylonian exiles. So God is saying that I will teach Israel that I am God by punishing them through the Babylonians. Okay, so now you understand the passage. And within that, verses 19 to 20, that's the prophecy of the Muslims, talking about how the Gentiles converted from idol worship to becoming Muslims. As we know, this is the excuse that idolaters gave when they were called to become Muslims. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا أولو كان آباؤهم لا يعقلون شيئا ولا يهتدون. When it is said to them, follow what Allah has sent down, they reply, no, we only follow what we found our forefathers practicing. Would they do so even if their forefathers had absolutely no understanding or guidance? So when the Prophet Muhammad came to the Arabs, the disbelievers used to say, we're not going to follow you, we're going to follow our forefathers, our ancestors. And eventually what happened? Eventually, at the end of the Prophet's career, the Arabs converted to Islam, and they left the religion of their forefathers. They left their idols. They converted to Islam, and they renounced what their forefathers were doing. They renounced what their ancestors were doing. Okay, just like Jeremiah says, that the nations are going to say, our ancestors have inherited nothing but lies, worthless things in which there is no profit. And this is why the Quran was sent down. Alif Lam Ra كتاب أنزلناه إليك لتخرج الناس من الظلمات إلى النور بإذن ربهم إلى صراط العزيز الحميد. Alif Lam Ra, a scripture which we have sent down to you so that you may lead people out of the darknesses and into the light by the will of their Lord to the path of the Almighty, the Praiseworthy. If you look here, the Muslim population of the world, right? These people abandoning their idols, including many of the Christians who had idols of Jesus and Mary. Look at this. The Muslims going to Hajj, right? Or they're going to the Kaaba, and you can imagine every year Muslims going to Hajj. Millions of people around the world coming to God's house, gathering together these people who come from ancestors who used to worship idols. Right? Like, take me as an example. I went to Hajj, millions of people, all these different nationalities, ethnicities of people who used to be idol worshippers, now coming to worship the one God. And similarly, we go to the mosque in Jerusalem, Masjid al-Aqsa, right? As the Prophet said, do not set out on a journey except for three mosques: Masjid al-Haram, which is the Kaaba; Masjid al-Nabawi, which is the Prophet's masjid in Medina; and Masjid al-Aqsa, which is the uh, Temple Mount, basically the mountain where the temple was, where the Dome of the Rock is, Masjid al-Aqsa, that compound. Okay. So the nations, the Gentile Muslims, they go there as well. We go to Jerusalem as well. Just like Jeremiah foretold, that the nations shall come to you from the ends of the earth and worship God alone. You can imagine, in Jeremiah's day, the only monotheists are a small group of Israelites. Right? The Israelites themselves used to worship idols. That's what the situation was like. The Israelites worshipped idols so much that God sent Babylonians to punish them and destroy Jerusalem and send them into exile. That was the situation. And now, if you look at this situation, so much of the world has renounced idol worship. Okay. And again, remember, even Christians who became Muslim in like lands like Egypt, etc., they used to worship idols as well, because they had idols of Jesus and Mary, these statues, and they would worship them and whatnot. When the Prophet ﷺ entered Mecca on the day of the conquest, there were 360 idols around the Kaaba. The Prophet started striking them with a stick he had in his hand and saying, "Truth has come and falsehood will neither start nor will it reappear." So the Muslims destroyed the idols in Arabia, and the Prophet went out. The Prophet told his companions to go out and destroy idols, and that's what they did. Okay, so that should be pretty obvious. The Muslims defeating idol worship, converting the Gentiles to Islam, and whatnot. What about verse 21 here? Therefore, I am surely going to teach them. This time I'm going to teach them my power and my might. They shall know my name is the Lord. So the divine name there. Now, two ways to interpret it. Number one, it's talking about, so it's going back to Israel, and it's saying that God is going to send Israel into exile in Babylon, and he's going to send Nebuchadnezzar to them, and he's going to punish the Israelites. And so the Israelites are going to know my name. They're going to know that it is I, through the punishment, they're going to be restored. In that sense, they will know that it was God who did this through the punishment. That's one possible interpretation. And the other possible interpretation is this is talking about the Gentiles, that God is going to teach the Gentiles. Okay. Again, I take the first interpretation. This is what Rabbi Steinsaltz says. Therefore, behold, I God am informing them. This time I will inform them of my hand and my might, and they shall know that my name is the Lord. Although even the Gentiles will ultimately recognize the true God, first Israel must receive its punishment. So again, he's saying that verses 19 to 20 are about the Gentiles giving up idol worship, but before that, God is going to punish them through the Babylonians. The NET Bible says, "So I will make known to those nations, I will make known to them at this time my power and my might. They will know that my name is the Lord." There is a decided ambiguity in this text about the identity of the pronoun them. Is it his wicked people he has been predicting judgment upon, or the nations that have come to recognize the folly of idolatry? The near antecedent would argue for the latter. However, usage of hand, translated here power in 6:12, 15:6, and later in 21:5, and especially the threatening motif of at this time or now in 10:18, suggests that the so goes back logically to verses 16 to 18, following a ground of judgment with the threatened consequences, as it has in at least 16 out of the 18 occurrences thus far. Moreover, it makes decidedly more sense that the Jews will know that his name is the Lord as the result of the present, at this time, display of his power in judgment, than the idolaters will at some later time. Okay. There has been a decided emphasis that the people of Israel do not know him. Now they will, but in a way they didn't wish. There's probably an allusion here to Exodus, etc. So again, they're mentioning there's some ambiguity here, but the opinion they're taking is that it teaches, I'm going to surely teach them, is referring to Israel, and he's going to teach them by sending them into exile, punishing them through the Babylonians. Again, here you can see some other scholars mentioning interpretations for this verse. This verse is, again, a God ambiguity in it. We see similar phraseology in Ezekiel. They shall know, the Israelites, that I'm the Lord when I disperse them among the nations and scatter them through the countries. Of course, this also shows that the phrase isn't literal, right? Because obviously the Jews know who the Lord is, right? So when it says they shall know I am the Lord, that's not literal, right? So yeah, you can see here different commentators taking the sort of position I've laid out here, such as Clark. Therefore, behold, I will now change my purpose. They will be visited and carried into captivity. So the Jews being sent into exile, right? Let's see one more, actually. This is a Jewish commentary for Bible readers, Jeremiah. Let's just go to the last opinion here. Luzzato gives a similar explanation. Oh, sorry, Malbim. Yeah, that's what I wanted to go. I was like, why are we talking? Anyway, Malbim gives an entirely different meaning to the phrase this time, etc. He says that at some future date, the nations will learn that the idols are worthless, but God wishes Israel to know the truth immediately. Therefore, he will send Israel punishment now, so that they may know God's reality now at this time. So again, the sort of interpretation I'm mentioning, that this is about judgment on the Israelites, right? Like Pulpit says, the final answer of the Lord, there'll be no further grace time. I will this once cause them to know. The judgment which Jeremiah has had the sad duty of announcing will prove to the blinded Jews that the Lord alone is true God, alone can strike and heal. So, and again, if you want to see some others mentioning this sort of interpretation, you can see here. And that's basically it. So let's just review what we've talked about. Passages, verses 16 to 21. Verses 16 to 18 are about God threatening the Israelites with the Babylonian exile. Verse 21 also is about God, once again, saying that he's going to punish the Israelites in Babylon. Okay. Verses 19 to 20 are Jeremiah speaking. The prophet Jeremiah speaks, and he foretells a time when the nations and the Gentiles are going to come to God. They're going to come to God. So that, to me, that kind of sounds like a pilgrimage, or like where you go to a place to worship God, like how the Muslims, we go to the Kaaba to worship God at Hajj, or how the Muslims, we migrate to, or we travel to Jerusalem to worship God there, right? I mentioned this hadith that don't take a journey except for 3 mosques, which is the Kaaba, right? And then the Prophet's mosque in Medina and the mosque in Jerusalem. So it sounds like that the nations are going to come to God from the ends of the earth, coming to this place to worship, such as Jerusalem or Mecca or whatever, and they're going to be declaring that those idols that our ancestors used to worship are false. And that's what the Muslims do, right? Look at me, for example, Pakistani heritage. So idol worship in my ancestry, and now I come and I denounce that, what my ancestors used to do. Okay? So I think a lot of people will feel the same way. Anyway, that's the prophecy. Assalamu alaikum.